I'm at Vágar Airport in the Faroe Islands to fly on Atlantic Airways' last ever flight to North America. The carrier was supposed to start this route back in 2020, but due to COVID it had to be postponed for a couple of years, and it finally did start in August of 2023, and at the end of the 2023 season they did announce they would continue it for the 2024 season, but then shortened this year's season to only 3 weeks and announced it would be the last season they would be operating the route. The airline does offer kiosk check-in at the airport, but due to entry regulations in the United States, you're required to see an agent to check in instead. The check-in desks open 2 hours before scheduled departure times, and not only do the agents handle the Atlantic Airways flights, but they also handle all of the other airlines that fly out of this airport. 2 hours prior to departures is also when the security checkpoint opens. Once I got my boarding pass, I decided to head through security so I could check out the duty-free shop at the airport. The gate area was pretty empty as there weren't many people going on this last flight. This was also the last flight of the night, so that contributed as well to the lack of people in the boarding area. My aircraft for the flight over to Stewart is OY-RCK, an Airbus A320neo that was delivered new to Atlantic Airways in July of 2019, and is the only aircraft they have that is able to fly into the United States, but I'll explain more of that once we're in the air. Since we were leaving the Schengen area, they stamped our passports when we left the gate area, right before getting on the plane.
Hello.
This aircraft is arranged with 174 seats, but for this flight over to Stewart, there's only going to be 27 of us. My seat for this flight is 20F, and I did get an entire row to myself.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen from the cockpit, welcome on board this last flight to Stewart. Flight time is estimated to 6 hours and 45 minutes. The weather route is fine most of the way, but to start with we are expecting light turbulence now and then until we come around Sorbeam, Iceland or so. In a short of now we show the safety demonstration, please observe carefully. During the flight...
knallas fast. Vi tackar för att dina fyllt vi och ersätter dina goa affärs.
At this airport, there is only one taxiway entrance to the runway, so we did have to backtrack a little bit before taking off, but that's no big deal. about 15 to 20 minutes after takeoff is when they started bringing around the pre-ordered meals as well as snacks and drinks.
In a moment we'll serve meal for those who have pre-ordered food for the journey. Afterwards, come through the cabin with our sales trolley where we offer a free cup of coffee, tea and still water. You will find our menu in the seat pocket in front of you with a wide selection of drinks and snacks. We have different deals like
For my pre-ordered meal, I got a New York open-faced sandwich. It came with fish, egg, shrimp, pickled cucumber, as well as carrots, and on the side there was salad as well as cake. I'm about 5'4", and I had about 6 inches of space between my knees and the seat in front of me. Between every set of seats there were 2 USB ports, meaning that for every 3 passengers there were 4 ports, which allows for plenty of people to charge their devices. It wasn't long before we reached our cruising altitude of 39,000 feet, and I decided to settle in, watch movies, and explore the airline's Wi-Fi. The 2 Airbus A320neos that the airline has, they do provide a phone as well as a tablet holder. In the seat back pocket there is a safety card that differentiates whether or not this is a 320neo or SEAL. While most major carriers are moving away from hard copy magazines in their seatback pocket, Atlantic Airways still does provide these. While a lot of the content in the magazines is in Faroese, there are quite a few English articles as well. To connect to the internet, scan the QR code and follow the instructions. The airline's Wi-Fi does offer an interactive map, although the aircraft size doesn't change when you zoom out much, but it doesn't really matter. The airline does offer a comprehensive list of movies as well as TV, and even if you leave the confines of Europe, you still will be able to stream as the service doesn't really cut out at all. And this flight is a great example of that as we venture way away from Europe and the service doesn't cut out at all during my flight. In addition to the moving map as well as the streaming movies and TV, you can also look at magazines from the Faroe Islands, you can leave feedback, and you can even look in Faroe Island Translate, as Faroese is not one of the languages in Google Translate. You can also look at the onboard menu or look at the About Us section as well. In the back of their magazine, they do have a section on every tail number in their fleet and who they are named after, including this aircraft, which is named Ingvar O'Reilly, after an abstract painter that was born and raised in the Faroe Islands. If you'd like to know more about the person this aircraft was named after, pause the video here so you can read it. As previously mentioned, this aircraft, OY-RCK, is the only aircraft in Atlantic Airways' fleet that is suitable for operations to the United States. That is because it is the only aircraft in their fleet that is equipped with VHF radio, and it is required for all commercial aircraft operating to, through, or within the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen from the cockpit again, we've now been airborne for around 2 hours and 20 minutes. Our cruising altitude is 39,000 feet with a ground speed of around 440 knots. We are approaching the east coast of Greenland, and it seems like most of the Greenland is clear of clouds, so we can have a look while we fly over. We estimate to land in around 4 hours and 50 minutes from now. And the weather is nice down in Stewart. There's a light variable wind with a few clouds and temperature is 25 degrees. Thank you.
With the low amount of people on board the aircraft, everybody was able to get a seat on the right side of the aircraft so they can view Greenland, thanks to the announcement from the captain. As mentioned a couple times, this flight only has 27 people on it. The return flight tomorrow from New York back to the Faroe Islands has only 11 people on it, according to the crew. Unfortunately, this was a common occurrence. Between this season and last season, the most full flight was the very first one, which had about 60 or so people on it. This plane has 174 physical passenger seats on board, but had it been a full flight, they would have needed a weight restricted to about 150 or so. Also, in the back of their in-flight magazine, they do have a route map for the airline. The route map is split into 3 sections: Nordic routes, Europe routes, and Sun routes. Nordic routes include places like Oslo, Reykjavik, Keflavik in Iceland, as well as Edinburgh in Scotland. Routes to Europe include places like Aalborg, Billund, Copenhagen, London, and Paris. Sun routes include places like Barcelona, Mallorca, Tenerife, and Gran Canaria, the last 2 of which will become the longest in the carrier's route network at just over 5 hours of flight time. And then, of course, there's New York, which didn't fit into any of the categories in the route network. This will also be the last issue that New York is a part of their route network for. At some point around Greenland's west coast, I fell asleep. When I woke up, we were already flying over Canada's Newfoundland and Labrador province. At this point in the flight, we were about an hour and a half away from landing in Stewart.
And we'll now start our second serving for this flight. We will come through the cabin with our sales trolley. We'll offer free cup of coffee, tea, and still water.
For my second pre-ordered food selection, I got New York tapas, which had rye bread, butter, biscuits, mixed fruit, jam, as well as salami. I spent pretty much the rest of the flight looking out the window.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now started our descent to Stewart Airport, so please fasten your seatbelts. Please open the window shade, put your seat back in upright position, lower the armrest and secure the table in front of you. If you set the wrong one or emergency.
Even though this flight was pretty empty for both of the seasons that it operated, the CEO is hopeful that the route will start again in the future, as the unsuccessful nature of this route was due to the delay of the initial start date of 3 years because of COVID. Of my interview with Atlantic Airways CEO will be up soon on my channel, so you can learn more about this route as well as other things about the airline.
good evening, airline 407. Hello, 407, short tail, altimeter 3016. We have 221, airline 7. Airline 407, roger, runway 9, clear to land, wind 1606. Runway 29, clear to land, airline 407. Right on Alpha, left on Charlie to the terminal.
Go Faroese, välkommen till New York, Stewart. Innan jag vill ubåten till Shipper Newslag shelter vi tryckta bästmål och nämnde.
Well, that's it. Atlantic Airways' final flight to North America. The CEO of Atlantic Airways is hopeful that it comes back, and I honestly do hope it comes back as well, as it's super convenient to get from North America to Faroe Islands with this flight, and the Faroe Islands are a beautiful place to visit. Customs took about 5 minutes, as this is the only international flight, and actually only flight at all that arrived at this airport on the day I took the flight. Under normal circumstances, Megabus does run a service called Stewart Airport Express, which runs directly from the curbside of this airport to New York City and does line up with the arrivals and departures of these flights, but Megabus decided to cancel the service on the day this flight arrived. My interview with Atlantic Airways CEO will be up soon on my channel.